Okay, I'm going to call to order a meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust, February 9th, 2021. We haven't been doing this, but we might as well do a roll call for attendance so people know who's here. We could go alphabetical.
You have to read an announcement?
Yeah, I can do that. Yep. All right, I'll do that first. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Hi, Dick.
Hey, Laurie. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I was a few minutes late.
That's okay. We were going to do a roll call for attendance and see if we can figure out how to do it in alphabetical order. So.
Okay, Bernardin's first. Rob Bernardin's here.
Okay, Lori Burzlaff here.
Oh.
Am I next? Is Kaler next? I guess so. George Kaler's here.
You jumped over Chris.
I'll go after George. Hi, this is Christopher G.
And Jean,
I'm
right?
I'm before. It's Joan Fitzgibbons.
Oh, sorry, Joan.
We all got to go back to school.
Yeah, really.
All right, Roger, you're up.
Yes, Roger Lawson is here.
Dick Valancourt is here.
All right, great. And Jean is also
We
joining.
didn't hear from Jean, though. We didn't hear from Jean at all.
I'm here, but I'm not a voting member, so.
I would still want to know you here.
Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 17th, or does anyone have any changes to the minutes?
I'll make the motion. I move we accept the minutes to the November 17th meeting as written or as distributed.
I'll second that.
Okay, Rob, well, we need to do a roll call vote. We want to try to do our order again?
It went so well. Practice makes perfect.
That's right.
Bernardin says yes.
I'm going to go at the end.
Chris also says yes.
Joan, where are you?
I said Fitzgibbons is a yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kaler says yes.
Lawson says yes.
Valancourt's going to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
All right, hold on. And Burzlaff is yes. Okay. 601. Okay. Rob, update from our treasurer.
Okay, good evening, everybody. The balance in the Affordable Housing Trust account remains at $772,165.87. The books of the town, the records of the bank, and the sub ledgers all balance to that amount, and there had been no activity over the past month, either for expenditures or revenue.
Perfect. Anyone have any questions? All right, we'll move on to our next item. An update on the rental assistance programs. So I believe I sent you guys the update from Anne Marie Connor, who's the person over at Greater Lawrence Community Action Council who is in charge of these two programs. As of this, the short-term emergency rental assistance program has depleted all its funds. So that is completely done. The other one, they're just starting out. So we had the home funds and that was being used. And now the 60,000 that we allocated, they're going to start using. And I think that is really all that we need to do on that, unless someone has any questions.
Lori, I have a question. I've forgotten. Did we allocate 100,000 to the ERAP, or did we allocate 200,000?
The emergency one
Yes,
was 200. We did
100,000 once, and then
we added
another 100,000.
right because the need was there.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. And that included the admin costs for that.
Lori,
Okay.
just for the sake of quick conversation, is there any thought as far as whether there's more need for the emergency rental assistance program? I know federally there are programs out there, but I was just curious if there had been any discussions about that.
So I think that Greater Lawrence Community Action Council has been able to refer people who came in after the funds were depleted. We just like gave our last grant maybe a week or so ago. We took the information off the website about 2 weeks ago because we knew we were getting low. And we're still referring people to them. So the RAF program's still going on. There's other programs that they can benefit from. I haven't gotten a lot of calls, as far as people looking for it. So I don't know. I do know that Greater Lawrence Community Action Council said that the long-term rental assistance is really what they're seeing a big demand for. So the emergency one was great to, keep people, but I think some of the people from that program are going to have to get moved over to the long-term program because this has lasted for so long.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I remember during the last meeting you'd reported on that being the case, and hopefully those folks were able to submit applications and get that assistance.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, George, you're up.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking to you as your representative on the master plan implementation committee. And on the committee or through the committee activities, I learned that the master plan has as one of its recommendations, what it calls strategies, the following. Incidentally, I'm looking at the sheet that Lori sent out to you that distributed last night. I hope you have it in front of you. Anyway, the master plan says as one of its strategies is utilize CPA and housing trust funds to offset housing costs for households at the lowest income brackets, parentheses, households up to 30% of area median income, close parentheses. So it specifically identifies people that are earning less than 30%. And the exact dollar amount depends on the number of people in the household. That table gives it for households up to 4 people. It's not a lot of money. Now, there's roughly 1,000 people, renters and homeowners, in the town that are earning 30% or less, or earning no more than 30%. So we're talking about 10% of the population. And generally speaking, they spend a lot of their income for housing. Or I guess I should say the prevailing, or let's say the accepted threshold for acceptable housing costs is 30%. If a family is spending more than 30% of their income, they're considered housing burdened. If it's less than 30%, they're fine. And down at the bottom of the page, you can see how many are cost burdened, spending more than 30%. And then also, if a family spends more than 50%, they're considered severely cost burdened. And there's a fair number of those in the town. The question for us is, and I should also say that the master plan identifies the Affordable Trust as the local entity, the government entity responsible for this strategy, or most responsible. And the question is, do we want to accept this responsibility? What do we want to do with it? We don't have to come up with any kind of a final answer tonight. I just want to get it on the table, or get it in front of us.
George,
comments or questions?
George, is there a financial commitment directly associated with accepting the responsibility, or is it implied that they will be going forward?
No, the master plan clearly indicates that we are expected to provide the funds, although in connection with the CPC. In other words, we could go to the Community Preservation Committee and say we would like money to support town citizens that are making less than 30% of the AMI. But yeah, the town the money would have to come through this organization, through the trust. We can't just recommend to the selectmen. Well, I guess we could. We can do anything, but the implication in the master plan is that we will accept the financial responsibility in conjunction with the Community Preservation Committee.
George, thank you for preparing this. So I was just curious, does that mean in terms of us planning to be identified as this entity, does that mean we have to come up with a plan at some point, or does it just mean that we have to dedicate some amount of funds in the near future? Or what exactly, I guess, does this mean in terms of our commitments?
Yeah. Well, you know, what I would say is we have to dedicate. I think that we should decide on amount. If we want to devote money to it, we should decide. One of the decisions to make is how much, and then the other decision is how is it going to be administered. And I don't think that we have to say we ourselves will administer it. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, let's get GLCAC involved again. They're doing these other rental assistance programs. Let's ask them if they could do this one. That's just my opinion or my suggestion. That's one of the things we can talk about is how would we administer this?
So it seems like what this is contemplating is basically paying to relieve that cost burden. So whatever is above that 30%, we would be responsible for assisting with.
Yeah. But that's the way the existing rental assistance programs work. The homeowners or the clients or the beneficiaries are expected to pay 30% of their housing costs. And then the rental assistance programs pay the difference between that 30% and whatever their housing costs are. And again, that's a decision for us to make, but it seems like that's pretty standard practice, and I don't know why we would choose another policy.
So
I certainly wouldn't recommend a different policy.
first of all, let me apologize. Somebody had to get in the building, so I had to run downstairs. So I'm sorry, I missed part of your information, George. So I apologize for that.
I think you
But-
know all this anyway, Lori, so I'm not worried about what you missed.
Well, my thought on, so you're thinking of a rental assistance program, like some sort of rental assistance program?
Yeah, and the reason I am is because I don't see how people earning less than 30% of AMI can really afford a home. Now, I
Right.
know there are some homeowners in town, but that's got to be a stretch and a strain. And I also relate to Habitat. Habitat aims their homes at people that are earning between 40% and 60%. So
Okay, so-
Habitat won't sell a home to somebody earning less than 30%. I don't feel, well, excuse me, Laura. Yes, I am thinking in terms of a rental assistance and not homeowners assistance. I'm
Well,
sorry, go
because
ahead.
my thought is, in order to hit that population, it seems like our previous plan, which I'm hoping is still in play, to team up with the housing authority to try to build on that area of Fountain Drive, that area of land. It was a while ago now. I don't remember how many units we were talking, but I think we were talking maybe 10, between a combination of us, CPC, and the housing authority to build, additional, that the housing authority would be responsible for the properties. And that would cover, because I believe that their renters are in that income.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. Also, that's another. That's an alternative idea that we can consider. And well,
because I don't know how else we would do. Were you thinking of like our long-term rental assistance program, where you would get a year's worth of assistance, and then you're expected to sort of be self-sufficient? Or what kind of, like, how? I'm sorry. I think someone else is trying to get in the building.
well, I would say that's another issue for us to decide. Do we want to put a time limit on it, like 1 year, or do we want to have it be unlimited, like Section 8? They would get that support for as long as they needed it, for as long as their income was, for as long as 30% of their income was less than their housing cost.
So my only concern is, because we don't have a recurring income, I personally like the idea of trying to team up with the housing authority and getting some more units, rental units available to help the 30% income limit people, only because that would be, a one-time, we'd know upfront this is a one-time cost to us. We would give them the money as a grant, and, I know it's down the line, but the master plan is also not something that I believe they expect us to do right away. I'm sure Jean can talk more on that as far as the timetable for the master plan recommendations to, materialize.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not going to be done overnight. There's 103 strategies in the master plan, but George is your representative on the master plan implementation committee. And they've been asked, they've broken out into, it's either 7 or 8 teams to address each chapter and kind of prioritize goals within those chapters. And so George, I'm not sure you can share who you're working with on the housing chapter, George, but each is reporting back with a prioritization of their top 3 or 4. And then eventually those 7 or 8 chapters are all going to kind of be blended together where the implementation committee can report to the Board of Selectmen which goals they feel should be prioritized.
Right, and of
Correct
course,
me
if
if I'm
these
wrong,
are like
George, but
low
that-
hanging. Sorry, Gene, go ahead.
What, Dick?
But George, I'm trying to summarize, but if you have anything to add, I welcome you to do that.
No, you summarized it right. One of the areas is housing, and I'm on the housing subcommittee, as is Cormier,
Is
Kelly
Holly with you?
Cormier, who's on the planning board, and a man named Jay Dowd. So the 3 of us are the subcommittee on housing. And each of these 103 strategies in the master plan identifies a town entity which is primarily responsible, or their recommendation for who should be responsible. The planning board has most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the community and economic development has a lot of them. The Affordable Housing Trust has 2. This one, and then one that we've already essentially done. It was really kind of an easy one too. And it was to determine the consistency between the housing production plan and the master plan, or rather to identify overlap so that the goals that overlap could be emphasized. And I regard that as kind of an easy one. And formally, it's.
Well, I think that's what I was going to throw in there too, George. I mean, if these are kind of like low-hanging fruit that we can, help and achieve some of the goals of the master plan, that would be great. I mean, if it's something that we can easily take on and complete, then we've got we're hitting those marks.
Yeah, what I would say is that our responsibility is primarily this goal about supporting the population earning less than 30% or no more than 30%. And as far as the time frame goes, the master plan is what it's looking at for the future, for the next 10 years, roughly. Would you agree with that, Gene, that it's some goals that they hope to have done in 5 years, and there's other goals that are 10 years, and some are even longer than that? So this is not something
theoretically, the plan should last about 20 years. So you'd want to achieve your goals somewhere between 10 and 15. It's just some are really costly, and others are, like Dick said, low-hanging fruit that can be done in a shorter time frame and less expensive to achieve.
Right, and this is certainly a goal that I think we don't need to wait 5 years to accomplish this. This is, well.
So we can do both. I guess the question is, how much are we looking to fund to address this bracket? So if you're saying, do we want to allocate $100,000, run the program exactly the way we run the home program, except the change will be, rather than 60% AMI, it's now going to be 30% AMI. And are we going to ask Greater Lawrence Community Action Council if they're able to run it? Like, what do you envision? Because if it's something like that, where we're saying, let's allocate $100,000 and see where it goes, and we've addressed it, and then we can continue planning with the North Andover Housing Authority about Fountain Drive. I mean, that project's going to be years down the road, but, if we can get it done and be able to, present a great plan to bring new units in to address a population that's in need, I mean, I think we can do both. It just depends on what you're envisioning for the amount of funds that you want to do for this particular rental assistance program.
Okay, well then let me ask, towards that end, let me ask you a question. What is the annual Community Preservation Act fund allocation to the town now? I couldn't find it. It used to be around 2 million. I don't think it's that high anymore.
You mean the match?
Yeah. How much money does the Community Preservation Committee get back from property taxes each year? What's their gross amount?
Isn't it like 3 million, somewhere in that ballpark?
I'd have to, I
Yeah.
haven't looked at the, I haven't been given the financials in a while. I would have to ask Lynn, but yeah, that's probably right, Dick.
Oh, 3 million? Okay, and then 10% of that has to be spent on affordable housing, although it doesn't have to be spent every year. But that means they've got around 300,000 to spend on affordable housing. Now, we've been asking them for 100,000, which.
Yeah, but George, you have to remember the Housing Authority falls under that and they have millions of dollars in projects.
Yes, I know. Well, they got a big one this year, but historically they haven't taken, well.
Yeah, they have.
What I was thinking is, the last couple of years we've asked the Community Preservation Committee for 100,000 each year. I was thinking we could use this as a reason to ask them for another 100,000. Now, as I said, remember, this is just my opinion. I'm just talking, I'm just one of you all. This is a decision that we have to make.
Just one point on that, the deadline for the CPC has already passed for this year.
We might not get it this year then, but.
No, well, I've already put in an application for our typical 100,000 that we usually do. It's actually on the agenda tonight, but just so you know, the deadline,
Pass, yeah.
I think was this week or last week, last Friday, maybe.
Yeah, it was February 5th, last Friday.
Yeah.
George, I'll say that I support this strategy. I think it'd be great to support this low income bracket household living in our town. I think you said, and the report here is that there's a significant amount, or at least more than I anticipated, being identified in the housing production plan. So, I'm sure we can all figure out a way to actually make this work in the future. But I'll say I support this.
I would support it also. I'd echo Chris. I'd support it also, although I would like to express some concern about an open-ended commitment. I think we'd want to, we'd have to work through the details on the dollars, I think, but an open-ended large dollar commitment on a reoccurring expense like that really adds up quickly. So we'd have to keep an eye on the numbers, but conceptually, it's certainly a worthy cause.
Do you mean open-ended?
What would you suggest, Bob?
Well, putting a cap on it, the Lori had mentioned the 100,000. If you run the numbers and, to get up, if it's a couple $100 a month for a family, I think you'd find the numbers would run through the money pretty quickly. So, but whatever the cap is, perhaps the 100,000 worked pretty well just for the 30 as opposed to the 60, as I think Lori suggested, might be a good approach. But my point being that conceptually, I would support it also.
Well, we certainly don't have to make any kind of a final decision tonight, but we should make some kind of a decision as to what the next step is. Certainly one step, I think Lori's got a good idea about talking to the Housing Authority and maybe reviving the idea of building a building at Fountain Drive.
Yeah, I planned on doing that. There's just been a lot going on with the housing authorities and COVID and trying to get vaccines and everything else. So, but it is on my radar. I will try to speak with the director over there in the next, couple of weeks and see if she's interested in starting to research that again and figure out if we can get a plan. But again, if you wanted to do outside of that another program, I guess we just need to know what that program would be. And if the group wants to think about it and maybe come back at the next meeting and.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I probably overemphasized too much that we need to make a decision tonight about next step. I mean, maybe it's just enough. It's enough to just say it's on the table. You've been given certain information. You want to meditate for a month or whatever the interval is till the next meeting?
Well, yeah, and the other thing that I can find out too, just because our other 60,000 says they can't be more than 60%, they could be people that are in that program that are under the 30%. I don't know. I'd have to ask Anne Marie. I mean, the 60% is our cap. So they could, in our program that's currently existing and with the home funds, it could be a situation where they are assisting this population. So I could find out. To me, if that's the case and they're already doing it, I would say we could, just add additional funds to that program since it's already here, unless somebody can think of a different program or a different way to do it.
Wouldn't it be a little more targeted if we just ran the same program with a 30% as opposed to 60%? Wouldn't we be a little more on target, Lori? What?
Yeah, we could. That's what I'm saying. But I can find out from Greater Lawrence Community Action Council, like where do the people that we currently have applications from, what group do they fall into?
Yeah, I would certainly be curious to know how many of the people receiving that aid are earning under 30%.
Right, and what's the need? And maybe actually they might have a suggestion of something else that would be better served for the 30% cap. I mean, I can't imagine what else they do besides rental assistance that we could do with our funds because we're specifically have to use for housing.
Well, and that's another good idea, Laura, because I certainly don't have any experience with people earning less than 30% of AMI. And it would be good to talk to somebody who does have experience.
George, can you tell, what is the source of that data? I'm surprised by the numbers also, that there were almost 1,000 families. Could you give information?
The American Community Survey data that HUD puts out in between census years. And the data from the latest, from the 2020 census hasn't come out yet. I think that data will come out in the coming year, and those numbers will be more accurate.
Right.
But in the meantime, between census, HUD tries to estimate a lot of statistics like that. Same with the income limits. What's AMI? What's 80% of AMI and so on? That's all just surveys that HUD does. And they put out the numbers, and they're just common. My experience is they're just commonly accepted. I have no basis for judging their accuracy.
Given COVID-19, these numbers could be substantially higher, at least temporarily.
Right.
Well, the numbers that are on this sheet were produced and published before COVID. I'm almost certain. Well, the fair market rents they're called 2021 fair market rents, but that's got to be based on data that's some number of months old. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, these could be influenced by COVID, but I suspect not real strongly. But your opinion is as good as mine. We can all speculate on the influence of COVID.
Okay.
Chris,
So,
you're with EHCD. You've got a better opinion. You're more informed than I am.
No, my uninformed opinion was that I think numbers potentially could be substantially higher right now than what's on your documents.
Yeah.
But, I think that's more temporary than long-term.
Okay, so I mean, the other idea too is if we wanted to revive the emergency program and change the income to the 30%, that's just throwing that out there too. If there's a need for emergency assistance due to COVID with that income. But so we can all think about it, and at the next meeting, I'll get some information from Anne Marie on what the current long-term rental assistance program, where the income levels fall. And also ask her if she has any other ideas that we can, maybe do to benefit this segment of the population. So yeah, we can, if everybody just wants to think about it and maybe come back with some ideas or suggestions, or think about if we just want to take a vote next time of, whatever dollar amount to just do the same program that we already have in place with a lower income limit.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. If you don't mind, if you could talk to Anne Marie and see if she has any suggestions on how the trust could support the under 30% of AMI income people.
And George, I don't know if you'd want to maybe look at some of, or reach out to somebody from MHP. They might have some suggestion. Of things that other towns have done or something like that.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that. I'll talk to MHP.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so that's our decision. We're gonna meditate on this for a month and get some more information.
Yeah.
It sounds good, George. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay. So the next item is the application to the CPC for FY 2022. The intent was to have this meeting before the deadline, but unfortunately we didn't get that pulled together, or I didn't get that pulled together. So I sent you all a copy of the application. It's basically the same thing as last year. We're asking them for 100, and we're going to put in 100. But we had talked previously at the last meeting about this year putting the application in for the first time home buyer program. So that's what I did.
Good.
So I'd like to have a vote from everybody that they approve the application. And if there's any changes, I can let the CPC know before their meeting tomorrow night or Thursday night. Actually, I think they're meeting.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry, Joan, what?
I didn't say anything, I don't think.
Oh, okay. So did everybody have a chance to look at the application?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, Laurie. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Yeah.
So do you want to make a motion? Just to approve the application.
Good. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as presented to us at this meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote.
Bernardin says yes.
Fitzgibbon says yes.
Chris G also says yes.
George Kaler says yes.
Roger Lawson says yes.
Richard Valancourt says yes.
Okay, and I am a yes, so that's unanimous. Perfect. Thank you. They usually have applicants come in at some point in the next few weeks, so I'll let you know what date that is. But again, it's pretty straightforward. It's the same, basically the same thing we do every year, asking them for the 100,000. But with that, So if this gets approved at town meeting, the funds are available July 1st. So we need to figure out how we are going to implement a first-time homebuyer program to start it on July 1st. So I'm hoping somebody will volunteer. I sent a bunch of samples, the first-time homebuyer programs for other that other communities have done. And there's also, like I mentioned to George about the programs, MHP. They have a lot of resources on their website and also a contact person for these programs if we ever needed like technical assistance. So I'm wondering if somebody would be kind enough to volunteer to come up with a proposal for what our first-time homebuyer program is going to be. And it doesn't have to be at the next meeting. It doesn't have to be, you know, we just want it up and running by July 1st. So, who wants to volunteer?
This is Chris. I'm happy to volunteer unless anyone else is eagerly anticipating to volunteer, but I'm happy to do it. And we'll keep in mind that the deadline is basically June, July. Can't guarantee I'll have anything by the next meeting, but happy to do this.
Yeah, no, it has to be approved anyway, so we'll know within the next, I don't know what CPC schedule is, but probably the next month of whether they're going to recommend this at town meeting, which I suspect they will, and whether the board of select board, will agree with that recommendation, and then it goes to town meeting. So obviously it's not official anyway until May, but I do want us to be able to have it ready to go. Especially, Joan, I'm sure the market is probably, the spring market gets hopping, and you know, maybe in July there'll be a lot of interest in it.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Lori, do you envision the town administering this program?
I don't know. All depends on what Chris presents to us.
Or I'll ask Jean. Jean, does the town have the capacity to administer this, or is part of the decision to find an administrator?
Again, George, I think if we wait to see what Chris recommends, we won't know kind of the weight of it until we see that outline. So.
I would suggest that we consider, I'm happy to take the lead, but if we want to have a subcommittee, if anyone else wants to be involved, outside of these meetings in terms of having discussions, I would suggest to propose that. But, I guess we don't really have to decide on that until the next meeting, but just throwing that out there.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure you guys all got, and if you didn't, I'll be glad to send it again. I sent some samples from other towns, and also some, I think I sent the printout of examples of eligible activities from Mass Housing Partnership. And there was also, maybe I didn't send this, but if I didn't, I'll send it. And there's also a person's name and their phone number on here at MHP, who is the contact for these programs. So that's the resource too.
Well, Lori, I don't think you sent out the document from MHP. You sent out the documents from 4 towns: Provincetown, Newburyport.
Okay,
Easton.
I'll scan this and send it out to everybody. It's just 2 pages. It was just the examples from one of their programs that they did. It's from the binder. I'm sure you probably actually have it, George. You probably were at one of their meetings or something, but I'll send that out. That's fine. So thank you, Chris, for doing that. And let me just find my agenda again.
There's some pretty programs, Lori. I'm sorry, just as a last aside, like the Plymouth document, it's very thorough, and it looks like it's quite well thought out.
Yeah, my thought is always why we don't want to have to recreate the wheel. So if there is a program that we see meets all of our, needs and we think it's great, then let's just copy it. You know, we can even reach out to them and ask them how the program's working, what are the pitfalls, you know, what's going well, how would you change it, you know? So I think that, I don't think it's going to be too difficult to come up with one because there are a lot of towns that do it. It's just a matter of what we as a group want to focus on. And again, whether we want it to be outsourced or whether we're going to handle it in-house. So,
What would the decision-making criteria be for a couple of outsiders looking in, though? It's really whether the town has any resources to handle it internally or Greater Lawrence, right?
yeah, well, it doesn't have to be Greater Lawrence. I actually think Bread and Roses does this too. But yeah, it would be a matter of whether we have the resources here, or whether it'd be worth paying a fee to a third party. So, okay. Any other questions on the CPC application or the first time home buyer program? That's good. That'll be good. Hopefully they will agree that it's a worthy thing to fund. So the last item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the promotion of accurate facts about affordable housing. So this came about because, if I'm being completely honest, I was absolutely disgusted by comments that were being made on social media platforms about the Royal Crest development. So I did not want to make this a Royal Crest discussion because that we will at some point in the future decide whether we as a board want to support the Royal Crest project, and if we want to have them in again or whatever. This isn't about Royal Crest. This is about letting people know that affordable housing does not mean criminals and derelicts coming into town. People have to start to understand that affordable housing is supporting our residents to be able to have a safe home, to have a roof over their heads. I'm really bothered by the language and the rhetoric that is going around in this town that, you know, I've lived in my entire life. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I would like another volunteer. I attached to the agenda Barnstable's sort of marketing campaign that I believe this was used for funding something. I don't know if it was for their CPC application or if it was for a particular development, but I thought it had great information. And if somebody could collect the information for North Andover, and then we do have somebody in town that's very, very good at doing these flyers with pictures and information. And I was hoping we could get something together, just an informational thing about, you know, what affordable housing is and who it helps. I mean, the gist of this basically is you need a certain hourly wage to be able to afford to live in North Andover. So that is what I would like to do. I don't know how the rest of you feel about having some kind of informational document that we can, you know, send out, post on the town's, you know, email, just explaining what affordable housing is.
Well, Lori, I'll volunteer to, let's say, try to gather relevant statistics or numbers. But what I am not good at is at presenting information like that in a graphical or graphics. If you say there's a town employee or something that can put together sexy sheets, sexy flyers or something like that.
Yeah, we definitely have the capability in town hall to get something put together. I just need the information. It doesn't even matter, George, if it's just all written out, you know, all listed out. We'll figure out a way to make it look pretty.
Well,
And I guess we would just have to decide what information do we want to put in there. So maybe this is something to bring back to the next meeting where if you're able to get the information, you know, how do we present it? Do we like the way Barnstable did it? Are there other, this is another good thing for, I think, to reach out to MHP, because I believe at one of their yearly, what do they call them? The annual meetings. I don't know if they call it something different. I forget what they call it, but I think it was 2 years ago, there was an entire workshop on this particular subject of, you know, the misconceptions of affordable housing and how do you explain what affordable housing is to your, you know, residents. So that again is probably another good resource going to MHP to get the information and ask how to frame it. If you guys are on board, if you guys think it's an issue and you don't want to do it, I'm fine with that too. But I will personally try to spread the word about misinformation that's out there. And again, it has nothing to do with the Royal Crest. Well, it doesn't have to do specifically with Royal Crest. It has to do with people understanding what it is that affordable housing does and who it helps.
All right, I think it's a good idea. Any information that you can provide is good information, but just don't get too jaded about that, because people normally, you know, I learned a long time ago on Facebook, you get 5 or 6 people that are the vocal majority, and they just go on and on and on. That's why I cut out a lot of those websites, because they just were rating on me with the misinformation that was being presented. And no matter what you try to do, they're just going to find another way to start complaining. I think it's a great idea. Maybe we could look and even have someone from like a student from Merrimack or something jump on board and help out with that. You know, they're always looking for civic projects to do and volunteer work. Maybe they can, and I bet they're pretty good at putting together fancy, sexy sheets, as George would say. So maybe they can do that.
That's actually a really good idea.
Maybe working with George to gather the data, and he can direct them how to find it all.
Well, you know, one reason why I volunteered is because I think that all the data that you're talking about, Laura, can be found in the master plan and the housing production plan. Those documents got a lot of HUD data. And so I think it's a matter of selecting information that's in those two plans. So,
George, I would agree with that. It's just not an easy read in the master plan or the housing production plan, in my opinion. It's a hard read. And so the more that we can take that information, the ones that, if you want to make a pass at it, you think it is pertinent, and I know who Laurie's referring to, I mean, we can put it in a much more understandable format, I think. But I think Merrimack College idea is a great idea too. There's a ton of data. It's just a matter of which one's the most important to bring to the forefront and how do we express it.
yeah.
And, you know, as far as this not being rural crest, the fact of the matter is whenever a 40B project is proposed or even preliminarily discussed, we get a lot of these kind of comments. So if we could point people in a direction whenever that happens, I think it'll be really helpful.
Laurie, I just want to say I commend you for bringing this to our attention. I thank you for putting this on the agenda. I did also secondhandedly hear about some of the comments that were made on social media, and you know, it upsets me whenever these kind of comments are made anywhere, but especially in our hometown, especially when we have a dedicated group of people like us here on screen who are trying to further this cause and make our community affordable. It's upsetting when it turns into a different issue. But you know, I do agree with Richard. You know, it's probably just a few folks who have this misconception or whatever you want to call it. But I think if there's anything we've learned the last handful of years, is that sometimes when you put in misinformation, regardless of whatever the intent is, it can get perpetuated. So if we as a group, or even if the town is able to push back on those type of misconceptions, even if it changes the opinion of one person, I think it's certainly worth it. George, I thank you too, as far as volunteering to work with this. And I'll volunteer to assist you, George, in this. I can't guarantee that I can help put up sexy pictures or anything like that, but certainly to help with the workload, I'm happy to do that.
Great, thank you, Chris. I think that is it, unless anyone else has anything. I do have one sort of just to plant the seed in everyone's mind. I am on my second year as chair.
I'm sorry, you what?
I'm on my second year as chair, and the select board has made it very clear that they like their boards and committees to rotate their chairs, and that it would be preferred for people not to serve more than 2 years. So come July 1st, that, our meeting in June or whenever that may be, think about who wants to be chair, because it's not going to be me. I'll just leave it at that. So you guys got 2 months to contemplate who you would like to nominate to be the next chair.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can work on an exemption.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Richard, since you're on the select board,
Well, Dick,
I
my
would like-
up then too, so.
I would like to say to Richard, one advantage of having Lori as the chair is because in the town, she hears about a lot of things that the rest of us don't. And she's able to bring that to the trust attention. And I think that's a huge advantage. I think, Lori, you've done a great job.
George, I appreciate that, but I'm still going to be on the committee, so I'm still going to hear things that I can bring to the committee, whether I'm chair or not. And remember, the chair just sets the agenda and runs the meeting. I'm no more important or have more power than anyone else in this group. We're all equal. So, just food for thought. It won't be me, George. You can sweet talk me all you want. It's not going to be me. I'm telling everybody right now, I will not be chair come July 1st.
Okay, it sounds like you'll think there's a chance. You're thinking about it, no?
Yeah. So you say there's a chance.
And with that, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call vote, please.
Bernard, yes.
Fitzgibbons, yes.
Chris is a yes.
Kaler's a yes.
Lawson's a yes.
Valancourt's a yes.
And Burzloff is a yes. Thank you,
Hey, we
everyone.
got the alphabetical order down, huh?
Yeah.
I think
Great.
so, yeah. See, practice makes perfect.
Gotta remember
can be
it's a
trained.
meeting.
The meeting is adjourned